Welcome back to the Extra Rep Podcast, guys. I'm Josh.
I'm Liam.
So today we're going to be talking all things fasting. So I thought it'd be really good to go through this from, I guess, like a pros and a cons list. So myself, I'm going to be sort of more on the pro side. More on the con side. And Liam will be sort of more on the pro side. But we're obviously going to have a bit of a balanced discussion about this and, you know, the caveats and, you know, when it's suitable for people, when it's not, and sort of what to do if you're considering, you know, going into a fast. So I think the first thing we need to sort of discuss when we talk about fasting is that people just want to use it as something to cut calories and they don't really think about anything, you know, beyond that. They just think like, I'm going to eat less, that's going to put me in a deficit, and therefore I will lose body fat.
I don't think so. I think that's from an educational standpoint what you think they think. I think a lot of people see all these benefits of fasting, like precursor to growth hormone and cleans up your zombie cells and your gut health and all this stuff, that people actually do it mainly for those reasons rather than just, I'm going to limit my calories.
And I've noticed, like, I do have, for example, clients who have seen, like, oh, if I fast in the morning, like, I just have, you know, better mental clarity throughout the day and things like that. And that comes down to, obviously, you know, a lot of things apart from just, you know, just eating or not eating. But I think it is interesting in terms of if we're going from, like, a pure calorie perspective, in terms of if someone's looking to, you know, improve their body composition the best way. I don't think it is the best way to do that, and that is mainly coming down to not getting enough protein in. Of course, if you're gonna, protein total, if you can do it in those sort of 2 meals, but for a lot of people, it's going to be very difficult to get, say, like 200 grams of protein, in inside 2 meals. So what I actually like to do with a lot of clients, if they want to do some sort of fasting, but I want them to retain and still build lean muscle, is do I call it like a protein modified fast.
Yep.
So basically it's, a couple of meals that they're not really meant to be in their eating window, literally just using like chicken breast or protein shakes or something, just to get a spike of protein in there, just to help keep that muscle protein synthesis active in terms of that. And that's just going to help them, especially when you're dieting down to super low body fat levels. If you're 20 kilos overweight, it's probably going to matter a lot less. So I think that's important to talk about as well.
Definitely. I mean, all the longevity experts out there, we'll call them that, are all going into protein modified sparing fasting now because they realize, one, the fasting lifestyle that they do is not sustainable, but the risk of muscle loss just isn't worth it to outweigh the other benefits that come with fasting.
Yeah, and I think it's probably the really big point that we want to take home even about this, even so early on in this podcast, is that a protein modified fast is probably, for many of you looking to improve your body composition, is going to be a better tool than just, an 16 hour eating window, whatever you're trying to do.
Yep.
If you can focus on that, that's already going to get you, a lot of the benefits of just cutting calories, but also keeping your protein where it needs to be to retain or even build some lean muscle tissue while you diet.
Definitely. I mean, fasting's just a name and a fad for it. Like, it's just a fancy term to say I'm fasting, where it's like you're actually just, you're not eating, you're skipping meal. Yeah. When you're sleeping, you're fasting. You and me right now, we're fasting because we're not consuming food.
I think it's like, especially when you talk about fasting, for a lot of people, they might be, for example, already under a stressful lifestyle, right? So they might already be stressed at work and they might just not be eating as a result of being so stressed. So, I think a lot of people, if they want to just adopt the fasting mindset, they're already in that mindset of I'm just like, I'm not eating anyway. I'm having 2 coffees, 3 coffees, and then having my first meal at 5 p.m. And then they're telling themselves, I'm fasting, so it's okay. As opposed to, deep down, there's a lot more issues going on there, especially with stress.
I mean, I've got a lot to say about that because we seem to be jumping from trends, especially in the health space, and we'll tell ourselves whatever we need to make ourselves feel better. For example, remember how people said breakfast is the most important meal of the day? Then people are like, actually, no, now that I'm fasting, skipping breakfast is actually more important. Then some people say skip dinner and they can sleep with a lower heart rate, but then some people are too hungry to fall asleep if they skip dinner, even though they finish their calories early in the day, and then they're doing a fast from that point. But then there's also, as you mentioned, there's the 0-calorie drinks like coffee that you can drink during a fast, but then what about the myth that people can't drink coffee on an empty stomach? Oh, you can't have more than 2 to 3 coffees. There's so many like fads that we all jump to. So honestly, like fasting, it's just a tool. That's all it is. It's a tool. It can fit your certain schedule. It can be amazing for things like if you're diabetic and you've got some insulin and blood sugar problems, fasting can be amazing. If you do have excess body fat on you and it's stored and you find it hard to lose, especially if you've got visceral fat around your organs, fasting can be an amazing tool. And the buzzword is autophagy.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard of that?
Oh, yeah.
So fasting is a precursor to autophagy. The research shows within like 16 to 18 hours into a fast, that's where we boost autophagy. And essentially autophagy cleans up our cells and, inflammation and damage in our body. But if you want 3 times more autophagy than a fast, resistance train for 45 minutes.
Yeah. And this is where, like you said, the whole, someone will cling to one word like that and be like, oh, if you do that, you'll get that. And people go, oh, awesome. But then, of course, they don't know that it's like, if I just resistance trained, I'd get 3 times the effect of not fucking eating.
Yeah.
So it's that pendulum that's just going to swing both ways. But when people don't know this stuff, it's very easy for someone online to market fasting as the best thing because of X, Y, Z. And they sound really smart and they pull all these studies up and they do X, Y, Z. But they're very, very smart at hiding all the other information to get you to, eventually buy their supplement or their product or, I'll take my fasting protocol because it's better than the others,
Well, fasting goes deep, right? Because some people can sell fasting programs. Some people can do fasting supplemental programs. So like buy my amino acids or my juices and all this stuff, but you're going to be fasting for 48 hours or a week even. But you're doing this sort of cleanse, they'll call it. But then fasting also goes into religious aspects, right? Like, Ramadan's a really big thing for a lot of people. There's other cultures where fasting is just like, all right, we're just going to fast for 3 days. Like just completely and do like these long hikes and treks and stuff in the mountains. It's like there is this culture of depriving yourself from food and abstaining from food. And yes, there is like a spiritual aspect to it because your mind starts to wander, Cataclysmic, what's the word I'm looking for? Cataclysmic, I think. Catastrophic? No.
Cataclysmic.
I think, there's one specific word I'm looking for. It's the morning if you guys can't tell when we're filming this. What's the word? No, completely lost it. Anyways, I'm sure Josh can cut that out.
No, we'll keep it in.
Keep it in. We don't edit this podcast, by the way, guys, if you guys haven't seen already. But fasting, I've lost my complete train of thought after that.
Good question. Let's just go back to, if we're talking about fasting and like mental clarity and let's go appetite.
That's the one. It was sustaining from certain hunger hormones and depriving ourselves of all the brain neurotransmitters like dopamine and stuff that we get from food. And we actually have such an emotional crutch on certain foods that what happens when you take it away and you go back to homeostasis and complete starvation, then you really do wonder where your mind races of like where it actually goes. And then it's like, okay, well, am I going to freak out and order something or am I going to have the willpower to abstain from it? It's like I need to remind myself I can go another 24 hours without food. I'm not going to die.
Yeah, it's really like, because again, like you said, you can go, like shit happens in life, right? You might get to the point where you miss a meal, right? And it's like, oh, at the end of the world, probably not. Just get back on, have another meal, right? But it's like once you start like naming that, oh, I'm intentionally fasting now and like trying to put those ideas in your head, that's when I think that just starts leading you, down the wrong path. And then you start just, trying to, like you said, create excuses for those sort of things. But I think back to like appetite control, like I don't know if you've noticed with clients, like have you noticed there's a lot of clients who are just like they do fasting and then like they're just not hungry or a lot less hungry?
Yes and no. So here's an interesting thing, right? Hunger comes from our hormone ghrelin and our satiation comes from a hormone called leptin. The more metabolically healthy you become and eat healthy whole foods and protein and have muscle mass and sleep well and all that stuff, then all of that stuff becomes baseline and you find that you don't actually have all those hunger signals that you had beforehand. Whereas someone who is metabolically a bit unhealthy and has a lot going on, then they just start fasting, it can be cataclysmic. That is the word I was looking for before. It can be cataclysmic because then all of a sudden they go into overdrive when it comes to stress.
Yeah.
And that's when we're talking mood issues. Like how many of those people that, like don't talk to me in the office before I've had my cigarette or before I've had my coffee or anything like that. It's because their brain, yes, they're fasted and they've fasted since the night before. So it's like 12, 14 hours since they've had dinner, but they're looking just for that one little thing to get them through.
It's funny, like you would say cataclysmic or catabolic, like it's very similar in terms of like, catabolic again, we know is breaking down muscle tissue. So it's like all those things again, if you're not doing this sort of stuff properly and you're not fueling yourself properly, you're not having the right nutrients when you're not in your fast, that's going to have a really probably negative and detrimental impact to your body composition, which at the end of the day, obviously, is one main reason why you're probably fasting in the first place as well. I think like the best use of it, like how would you, like if a client came to you and said, I want to do fasting, like this is fine, maybe a protein spared modified fast, where would you sort of set, proteins, carbs and fats around meals depending on when they were training?
Well, 100%. I won't just go into training. I'll actually just go before the fast in general, but I will explain the training one. Blood work. You can look at specific insulin sensitivity markers in blood work, like your HbA1c, your fasting glucose, your fasting insulin, like your triglycerides. Just get those 4 measured first, and then you'll actually be able to understand your response to around certain, carbohydrates. Because if someone's insulin resistant and I'm giving them carbs around their workout, it might do a bit of an opposite effect because their blood sugar can't actually, well, not just their blood sugar, but their pancreas and their liver can't produce any insulin when they eat those carbohydrates. So they won't actually get the energy spike that we need them for training. So, fasting or a ketogenic or a carnivore type of diet would actually work a little bit better for them with proteins and fats. But for the average person who, I've looked at their blood work and they don't have any of those issues, in terms of, well, just eating carbohydrates around training, we have so much research out there now, and more is coming out that you do need some form of carbohydrates and fuel in your system before you train. And we're talking specifically resistance training, by the way, weight training. If you're looking for performance, which you should be looking to progressively overload every single time you step into the gym, outperform what you did last week, you do need carbohydrates.
Yeah, I think in terms of setting it up, like I find, like depending on, let's just say, for example, someone's training, 6 p.m., right? Yep. And they fast all the way through till like 3 p.m.
Yep.
So you'd want like maybe at 4:30 or their first meal, you'd want to smash it with probably 50% of your daily carbs, right? And Definitely. Then obviously you'd train, maybe an hour or two later, you'd get the other, 50%, and then, go to bed in whatever eating window, maybe you're going to sleep at 12 o'clock, all right? And then waking up and going through all the way through to 3 p.m. again. Obviously, that's when you probably start putting in, the shakes or things when we're talking about that protein modified fast. Like when you wake up, maybe at 9 o'clock and 12 o'clock, you could have a shake and a shake. But I think the main area is if you're going to fast, but you obviously want to resistance train, is making sure that ideally you can try and sandwich those meals or those carbs in between your training sessions, or at least getting something in before that, and then potentially just having some protein afterwards or a shake before you go to bed or in the morning or whenever that is, whenever you decide to start and stop your fast. I think it's a really good strategy there.
Yeah, I used to be really big on fasting. For people that don't know, like I used to do it myself. It was like 1 p.m. I'm completely, that's when I break my fast, and I was obsessive about it. Nothing else mattered in life until that 1 p.m. window when I knew I could break my fast. And you're literally just holding on. You're just like holding on to dear life. And I'm a morning trainer as well. So if I'm going to train in the morning and then I don't eat anything until 1 p.m., I'm literally ready to kill someone.
Yeah. It's not fun.
It doesn't work.
Yeah, and it's just, from a, like I said, nutrient standpoint as well.
It was stupid.
It's just not smart, is it, when you think about it? Like, you want to fuel yourself when you train, and of course, like, if you want to be in a deficit, you still have to be in a deficit, right, to lose body fat, but you've got to be a bit more strategic sometimes about how you plan it around, and you do it for one workout, you're probably fine, right? But if you just make it a regular thing, like, eventually performance is going to decrease a lot quicker, and you will make much slower progress than you would if you were prioritizing your carbs around there, especially, like I said, if you're going through a period of having no carbs or having no calories. I think it's a really smart thing to, like you said, just plan it around and be, a little bit smarter as well. I think the only other thing I really want to talk about is a lot of people will really just undereat, and then they'll go into a fast, and then obviously like gets the weekend and it's just like, and they just binge. You
Yeah.
know, it becomes a really big problem of Monday to Friday, I'm on a fast, and then I just let it be a free-for-all Saturday, Sunday, and it puts them back at least at maintenance calories, if not gaining weight, and then the cycle continues.
Yep.
And I would almost say that's almost worse than someone who's doing like a regular Monday to Friday of just like, you know, still cutting calories, but then they're going a bit overboard on the weekend because your body's going to sort of be like, yeah, what the fuck are you doing?
Well, so many people just have different routines and different work schedules and stuff. I know some people that do like a 5-day eating period and a 2-day fast throughout the week. I know some people that work night shift, and fasting can be amazing because they shouldn't be eating during their, you know, night shift and all that stuff. So like, not to say that they shouldn't eat during their night shift, but at the same time, when their body's actually thinking that they should be asleep at that time, you're going to be completely insulin resistant. You're not going to be insulin sensitive. So eating carbohydrates just ain't going to be good. And this isn't an insulin podcast by any means necessary, but avoiding food can help with resetting circadian rhythms like that in terms of fasting and then night shift. And, you know, especially like firefighters and FIFO people that I've coached that have a rotating roster, you got to actually be really strategic when you choose when to and when to not fast.
Yeah, I think that's a really good one with the shift working because like I've got a couple of clients, same thing. And I strongly recommend, you know, they have their last meal around the dinner time and then, you know, they're working overnight and I say, you know, try and limit your caffeine. If you have to have a coffee, have one, but really try and not eat, you know, and then before you go to bed, maybe just a nice balanced breakfast or something like that, then go into bed an hour or two after. Obviously try and get as much sleep as possible, depending on, you know, how they're rotating their night and day shifts. If they're just a night shift worker, it's probably almost a bit easier than doing maybe like 2 days, 2 nights. Like I know a lot of like ambulance people will do like a 2-day, 2-night sort of thing, which I mean, it's not, if I was going to pick one, it wouldn't be my favorite strategy in terms of day and night. Like you'd just rather either stay with nights or stay with days so your body can, you know, get into a rhythm and a bit of a routine in terms of that as well. Anything else you want to talk about?
We haven't touched on a lot of the clients that I deal with. So it's a lot of like gut health stuff, and fasting can actually be beneficial for these people because they actually have nutrient absorption issues. So sometimes they're in pain when they eat, sometimes they have discomfort. So not
Bloating,
eating, bloating, gas, and sometimes constipation as well. So in those cases, it's like fasting actually helps because it gives their digestive system a break because it's already under so much stress. So if you're under one of those protocols, one thing I do recommend for a lot of people is bone broth fasting because yes, it's only like 40 calories per serve, but the collagen, the amino acid profile, glycine, magnesium, you know, the electrolytes and everything, it's so good and beneficial and helps with muscle retention as well because it's pretty similar to protein modified fasting. It's just not the same amount of grams of the protein. But everything in there, like if you're going to do a long fast, like bone broth can really, really help. And because electrolytes and B vitamins is something I recommend that people do on a fast. Because, people don't realize, like, you know, we are depleting electrolytes if you're not eating anything at all. And you're depleting them a lot faster because there's nothing really to bind to in your body. So you want to be, also the food that you're eating contains electrolytes. So if you're not eating any food, and we're talking about things like potassium and sodium and, you know, that's the salt you put on your food and all this stuff, it's like, okay, you're not getting those electrolytes in. And yes, water's so important, but you can't actually get all those electrolytes purely just from water. And we don't have to talk about the heavy metals and all that shit in tap water on this podcast. But bone broth can come into play really well. It's so gentle on the gut, and for people looking to do like a prolonged fast, because there are some health benefits, and for the right person it can work. Just actually adding, you know, some servings of bone broth every couple of hours can really get you through, and it can really help as well.
Yeah, cool. And I think that's the final point is that you got to understand that when you're fasting, like, again, you're depleting nutrients across the body. You're getting less food in overall, right? So if you already have a problem with getting enough good nutrients in, then deciding, I'm just going to go on a fast and then on those 8 hours, I can fit in a pizza, eat whatever I want sort of thing, it's generally the dumbest thing you can do because you're going to eventually, you know, drive yourself deeper into a recovery hole with, you know, not getting enough nutrients, not getting enough vitamins and minerals. And eventually that's just not, you're going to almost, your body's not going to shut down, but it's going to become really stressed, really inflamed, and it's going to be really hard to improve your body composition from there.
Well, here's the thing, right? A lot of people turn to fasting because they'll actually say the opposite. They'll say, I feel better on fasting and food makes me sluggish and tired and I can't focus on work. It's just like, that's actually some other issues. If you're eating food and you can't focus and, you brain fog and, you feel like shit, it's just like you've got something else going on there that you need to address. Yes, you could be metabolically unhealthy. You could have a, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. You could have a gut issue. But you shouldn't feel like shit after the foods you eat. And this is why protein modified sparing fasting is really good, because a lot of people can handle, a protein shake.
Yeah.
Unless
protein
you're
and veg, yeah.
lactose intolerant. But like a lot of people can handle that because, there isn't going to be a major insulin spike or anything like that. But a lot of the times it can come down to insulin sensitivity and insulin resistance. But yeah, a lot of the times I notice it's undiagnosed metabolic health conditions that make you feel like shit after eating. Fasting gives you some alleviation of that. So people think that fasting is the way to go.
Yeah, for sure. And I think the last thing I just want to touch on is that, like, we've talked about insulin a couple of times, and it's like, we don't want to scare you with like, oh, your insulin's spiking or this and that. But it is, once you get blood work, it is always good to look, because if, like I said, there's some metabolic conditions or things under that, then carbs can do different things. And of course, eating a healthy, balanced diet is going to be your first way to go. But if you're still finding you have issues after that, or, through certain things when you're doing fasting, that's when I'd strongly recommend getting your blood work done, because then you'll be able to identify what's actually wrong and then obviously how to fix it. And obviously you've got Liam here, who can definitely do that for you if you guys need any more help. But I think that's a really good place to leave it, guys. Again, if you want to get in contact with myself, at Action Fitness Nutrition on Instagram, and Liam, Coach Liam C. Murphy. But until next time, guys, we'll see you in the next podcast.
See you guys.